I was coming to Japan as a tourist to chase the typhoon. So actually my first year of ever doing this, back in 2005, I hopped from Taiwan to Okinawa to film a typhoon, or to experience the typhoon. The storm actually kind of missed the island, but it still brought a lot of rough weather. But I moved here in 2017, which was a quiet year. There weren't that many typhoons. But then 2018 to 2019, it was just like turbocharged Japan typhoon season. Okinawa got blasted, the main islands, Tokyo got blasted, Osaka got blasted. It was like a real freak couple of years where there were like multiple like $1 billion plus, typhoon disasters on the mainland. And then it went quiet again. So I've lost track of the number of typhoons I've filmed.
Have you noticed any difference perhaps between the typhoons you've observed and chased here in Japan compared to those that you've experienced in Hong Kong, which is also pretty prone to typhoons, or Taiwan, or that you've seen in Philippines and Vietnam, Southeast Asia?
Yeah, there's generally, depending on which area you're in, the nature of the typhoons can change. So basically, these are tropical storms. They really thrive in deep tropical hot places. So the Philippines, it's deep below the Tropic of Cancer. It's very, hot and humid down there. Perfect conditions for these typhoons and tropical storms to form. And the sea temperatures are warmer down there as well. There's no real proper winter down, in the Philippines. Mm-hmm. So it's in those areas, south of 20 degrees north, within the tropics, where you generally see the strongest storms. Now, the main islands of Japan, we're up at about 30 degrees, 35 degrees north. So we're quite a way outside of the tropics. We have a winter here, it can snow in Tokyo. The sea temperatures get a lot colder over the winter months, so we don't get any typhoons. So generally, where we are up here, the further north you are, the more hostile the conditions are for the typhoons. So most of the time that the storms that are making landfall in mainland Japan, the winds aren't too bad compared to when you go further south to Okinawa. Okay, that's slightly further south. It's warmer, more humid. The sea temperatures are higher. They get stronger typhoons. You go even further south down to the Philippines, well, that's where you get the strongest storms in the world. But as I mentioned before, just because the winds might not be blowing so strong, the storms can still cause immense amounts of damage and be very deadly.
In the years after you arrived, you said 2018, 2019, Japan got blasted pretty heavily, including Osaka, where we are now, and Tokyo. What have you experienced there? What was it like?
So 2018 was a typhoon called Jebi. Now, Japan, they don't actually use the names of the storms. They use a numbering system, which makes it really easy to forget what the number of the typhoon was. But I think it was in September. And it was a very, very powerful Category 5 typhoon far south of Japan in the tropical Pacific. And it slowly started to weaken as it was approaching mainland Japan. And I jumped in the car to go chase it and assumed it would be like kind of every other mainland kind of Japanese typhoon I've chased. It would be unraveling, the winds wouldn't be too bad, but I'd chase it anyway and get some shots of the waves by the coast and whatever. I thought it would be quite a straightforward chase. But it was one of those storms which just kind of confounded my expectations and caught, I think, everyone off guard. And this thing came roaring ashore with far more ferocity than I think everyone was expecting. So I was down towards south of Osaka, south of Wakayama, is that?
Wakayama.
Yeah, it's on the western side of the Kii Peninsula. Forgive my getting confused with the geography. So I was about 2 hours south of Osaka, right on the coast where it came ashore, and it was wild down there. It was like stuff flying through the streets. And then that typhoon, it just did not weaken. It went straight up between, the channel, the sea, smashed into Kansai International Airport, submerged the airport with storm surge. I think a ship broke loose and smashed into the bridge and damaged that. Tore right through Osaka. Like, I remember at the time the clips appearing on YouTube of just, K-trucks flying away and just roofs getting ripped off buildings and the damage, flooding, storm surge at the container port. There was so much wild footage of crazy things happening. I think afterwards everyone was quite shell-shocked and like, what the heck was that? It's been quite a long time since a typhoon of that ferocity had hit, the mainland. And then the next year, 2019, basically the same thing happens, but in Tokyo. This freak storm spun up. Instead of weakening really rapidly, it maintained its strength and it smashed up Chiba. And the winds were incredible, some record-breaking wind speeds. And there was a very kind of punishing 2 years then. But then since then, it's kind of been quiet. That's just the way it goes.